I want to just start off with what's called a word whip. So we're going to stay in this exercise for a little bit. I'm going to just pass the ball around, and if you can please introduce yourself. I know that you have been working together all day, but we definitely would love to get to know you. Introduce yourself, and what is your teaching artist practice in terms of, are you a visual artist? Are you a musician? How do you come to this work? So I'm Allison, Denver Center Theater.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Bessler. I am not an artist of any way, shape, or type. I'm an 8th grade language arts teacher in a arts integrated middle school. I guess I could say in amateur world, I'm a writer.
Great, great.
My name is Michelle Lacey, and theater. I am a high school theater teacher in Parker at Legend.
Patrick, Denver Center Theater.
I'm Michael, and I'm a professional musician and I think 360 artist for, say, about the last 10 years. And I go to schools for them and teach about jazz and improvisation. And I'm also a substitute music teacher, K through 12, in Cherry Creek schools. And an active professional performer in Denver area and other areas. So.
Great.
Hi, I'm Anne, visual arts would be my medium. I work right now with young children and families.
Excellent. Fantastic. An exciting group of educators in the room, which is fabulous. Next thing. When you're approaching this idea of engagement, what challenges do you face? So it might be in the classroom, it could be collaborating. So really starting to unpack this idea of engagement. Pressure cooker, here you go, to my left.
No problem.
For me, my challenge is just trying to understand the skill levels of the students that I'm working with and creating or designing a project that fits their skill level so that they can be engaged throughout the entire project.
6th grade social studies. We do expect students to try all of the different art forms, and that means there's a lot of risk taking that's expected of them. And sometimes students want to hide, and so that would probably be the challenge that I'm seeing for engagement, is the person sitting in the back who's like, I don't sing. So we'll make it safe, but you will.
So, to piggyback off what Carissa said, at 8th grade I see kids who equate being silly with being foolish. And I try to break down that sort of stigma that they have by being the silliest person in the room.
Right.
With whatever we're doing, don't worry, you may look foolish, but I will look more foolish than you do. It's safe, it's a risk, yes, but you don't have to be cool. Like, being cool is great and fine if that's your thing, but it's more fun to be awkward sometimes. So I try to break down that, like, I'm a cool 8th grader sort of thing.
Beautiful. Great. So, couple things, just to take a moment. One of our beautiful colleagues, sort of colleagues, not really, sort of our master art teachers in the land of theater, Del Close, who created the Herald and essentially started long form improv. But one of the beautiful properties that he talks about is listen and remember. So everybody just take a moment to revisit all of this amazing information that was just shared from our teaching partners in the room, of challenges that might be similar, or even takeaway of like, wow, I really want to think about that in terms of what happens if I make sure that the collaboration is happening not in front of the students. What impact does that have? Right? I love the, oh, Liz, I was, no, it's great, I love it. I was so used to Liz right here. She's like, I didn't want to start it. No, it's good. That's good. I feel better now. Oh, I feel better now. So everything is back in place. It's perfect. But I love, like, this is such a beautiful thought in terms of that's teaching artistry, right? It's like, where does my artistry meet the classroom, and what is that balance? What do I need to build relationship, right? This idea of the student who's hiding. And we know that learning takes a lot of bravery. So what can we help the students in terms of tools? This idea of time came up a ton. So just to take a moment of that idea of listen and remember of like, what can I just take from this conversation? And as we move through the work, we'll keep coming back to these ideas that are definitely thematic to our group today. Fabulous. Next question, but I'm going to change the format a bit. One word response to challenges around classroom management. So you're going to say a word and a squeeze, and then it passes. Does that make sense? Around classroom, yeah, just everybody take a minute, just take a sec. Challenges around classroom management. Fabulous. Time.
Patience.
Listening.
Size.
Diversity.
Random.
Hearing.
Culture.
Great.
Too cool.
Constant.
Patience.
Diversity.
Good word.
If you repeat one, that's awesome too. If it was a thought you shared, that's beautiful.
Stumped. Just fear.
Great.
Blurts.
Unresponsive.
Connections.
Compassion. Capacity.
Great. Excellent. So now take that moment in terms of the listen and remember of where those things that are shared, where do they cross over? Where is it like, oh, that's one for me too. Yeah, oh, I got that one too. Oh, yeah, oh. Or, wow, I've seen that shift in my classroom recently, and what's been happening, and what's that changed behavior within the management? So just things to think about. Fabulous. So we just did a few rounds of what's called a word whip. So one thing that I'm looking at as we kind of move into, as Patrick was saying, we did sort of the moment of creating, and now we're going to take a moment to reflect around what we just experienced and the tool that is the word whip. So there's a couple things about it, is that we are taking in a lot of diagnostic information, right? So things that I picked up very quickly is that we weren't sure in terms of who was here today, right? So we needed a lot of information of, great, we want to make sure that there are strong takeaways for everybody in the room. And the fact that I'm like, fantastic. There are beautiful, amazing classroom teachers here. There are teaching artists here. There are visual artists here. There are preschool teachers here. There are 8th grade teachers here. We have a ton of information now, which just opens up our teaching because it becomes that idea of relationship. So then I'm not just like, oh, well, we're still going to 100% stick to this plan. I don't care if you have any takeaways, right? I'm just going to, instead of like, okay, great, we can really tailor it. And that's fantastic information. So it's a quick diagnostic. And even and often when we go into classrooms where you are fighting that 45-minute, 50-minute period, doing a quick word whip that's one word, you can gain a ton of information and everybody's participating. Even if you have that moment where a student does want to hide, you can give them a safety word of, great, in this exercise, just say engagement if you can't think of anything, and that allows them to have a safe pass, you know? So then it just instantly gives a lot of information. And in terms of ritual, if we're visiting a classroom multiple times, I might start in exactly the same way, and I would end in exactly the same way in terms of, great, what are you taking away from our work? One word. So then that gives me a ton of information of, wow, that concept really landed because 6 people took that away. And no one mentioned that one thing that we covered. It means I got to go back. That's on me. I got to go back. Maybe I tried to cover too much within this hour, so that helps me edit, helps me in terms of classroom management. Lots of information can come from a very short format exercise. I love and collect them, balls. So this one I've had for years and years because of this. There is nothing that can hurt it. I had this amazing ball once that was filled with goo, and I was teaching an intro to acting class, and this fantastic young woman, she was so vibrant. She was a pianist, and she was like thinking, and she was playing with the ball, and she just went bam, and it popped like that, one of those goo, because her hands were so strong. And I was like, good note, this is fantastic, I've learned something today. But what this does, especially, you know, 8th graders, 7th graders, right, where it is incredibly brave to put your ideas in the world, where you're grappling with so many things. When you are in a kinesthetic learning environment, and maybe it's a shift in the classroom, is that it takes bravery. This helps in terms of there's something I can hold, and it helps me think. So even like Lisa had that moment where she didn't, like there was nothing about like, I'm not going to put the idea in the world. The idea was coming. It just needed a moment. So the tactile is honoring already, right? And it's something great to look at. You know, they want to toss it. It's never going to hurt anybody. So it's just something fun to have in the room, and it sort of just sets up the word whip.
The other thing that Allison and I are very aware of when we're using these activities as diagnostics is trying to figure out what our population knows already, so that we know where we can assume and where we need to ask questions. So this next activity is called Buildin Break. It's a two-prong process, very simple. I just need one of you to step out into the center without knowing what you're going to do. Excellent.
Liz, I'm sorry,
Liz,
I don't
no,
have
that's
anything
okay.
on.
Great, Liz. I'm a big believer in using people's names, particularly in feedback. Coming from the arts of theater, we like to hear our name, right? So when I'm talking, I'm not going to say she, I'm going to say Liz as much as I can. So Liz, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and on 3, I just want you to strike an interesting position. Okay?
Okay.
All right? And it's going to be something that you're going to have to hold for a while.
Oh, that's good to
So,
know.
yeah. So, you ready? 1, 2, 3. Great. So this is our beginning position. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and I would like everybody to just move in and make a connection choice. You can make 3 kinds of connections. You can make a physical connection, you can make an implied connection, or when in doubt, I can't think of anything, it looks great on Liz, shop it, it'll look fabulous on you. Okay? So, here we go. So,
I might just
when,
change.
yes, that's great. So, right, just to get teaching for a minute, this is exactly what I hoped my student would do. Correct her work so that it's all the stronger for her and for everybody else. So, on 3, go ahead and make your choice. Yeah.
It's not reach.
I'm saying?
What if it's not reach?
You can
So
leave.
many people.
Right, you can leave your spot and make an adjustment. Yeah. Great. Ready? 1, 2, 3, action. Great. Nice. So I'm going to ask you on 3 to just adjust your work and make it a little more interesting, whatever that means. 1, 2, 3. Ooh, nice. So remember where you are, okay? Because in a moment, I'm going to ask you to break, and I want you to come back to your spot in the circle. Then I'm going to say build, and I want you to build this exact same sculpture. So take a moment to see where you are, and break, come back to where you were in the circle, and build. So make the exact same shape. Really nice. Okay, so now what I'm going to ask you to do is imagine that this is the front of the sculpture. Okay, it's an abstract sculpture, so technically the front could be anywhere. Okay, but I'm choosing this to be the front. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to rebuild the sculpture so that the front is going to be over here. And I'll move so that you have it. So just take a second to assess where you are in the work now. Okay? So this is the front. And break. Come back to your spot in the circle. Okay? Great, great, great. And now I want you to build again, and this is the front. Oh, that's good. And we'll talk about it. We'll unpack it in a second. Really nice. Great. And break. Come back to your original spot in the circle. So, I thought you were very successful. Okay? Why were you successful? Besides me saying you were successful.
When you gave us a chance.
Is that the only?
But I wasn't successful.
You gave us a chance to plan. While we were in that position, you said, okay, like, think about where you're gonna go. That was helpful.
As opposed to having the instruction come from here, right, and change your focus so it's over there. Great. Anything else?
And if there's an anchor, we get some time to establish an anchors. Like her hand.
Yeah, she was like, is your hand there?
Uh-huh. Did anybody use that strategy? I'm just going to watch. Then I know. I go over here.
Yes.
Did anybody use the strategy of I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, oh, now I know, right? So ultimately in these diagnostic activities, whether they're Word Whip or whether like Buildin Break, you just get to know so much so quickly, and you also set the expectation of the protocol in your classroom. I'm a circle guy. We're going to always work at circle, and for about 90% of the circle time, we're going to be standing, because that's a core discipline in my artistic discipline, which is theater. I have to be able to stand as an actor. And I also have to be very comfortable as an actor to say, hey, I had surgery on my leg, I'm now done standing. So it really empowers my learners to help me help them, particularly if I'm dealing with silent disabilities that I don't know about. These activities automatically, because we're moving, give permission for someone to come to me and say, Allison, my leg hurts. And I can say, great, just make that adaptation. So these are two diagnostics that we use all the time at Denver Center in our work, Buildin Break and Word Whip. So from us to you, with good help.
Fabulous, great. Keep this rolling, because these, I think, are the thread that we'll keep pulling on as we go through the work, and hopefully some of these tools will start to help in terms of these obstacles. This exercise is called Name 6. So our ball comes back. Yay. So what happens is this is the timer all the way around the circle. So when the ball comes back to me, the time is out. I'm going to invite one of our participants to come into the center of the circle. They are going to be asked to name 6 things within a category by the time the ball comes back to me. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Fabulous. Do I have a volunteer to go into the circle? I love it. Yes, let that happen. I loved that instinct. That foot was going in. I loved it. Yeah, perfect. What 6 things are you talking about? Yes.
Can we pass really slowly?
Well, we're going to try to, that's a great question. We're going to try to, we'll see how the pass goes. We'll try to keep it even so it's fair for everyone inside the center. Great. Can I please have a category? A category of 6 things.
Mammals.
Mammals. 6 mammals. And go.
Elephant,
Yes.
tiger, lion, oh my gosh, bear, wolf, coyote.
Bam! Give her a round of applause. Excellent. Fantastic. Ball back to me. Excellent, excellent job. Beautiful. At this point, you can play in 2 ways, depending on your group, is that she stays in, right, of like conquer the round, or she chooses a successor, great, to come in and that next person, and we sort of keep sharing in the success. Great. Very simple structure. So now let's unpack in terms of this idea of modification. So let's go to a preschool classroom or kindergarten. How would you modify?
3.
Great, maybe name 3 things. Fantastic. Great.
Maybe name the category before they volunteer.
Yes.
Excellent. Great, so they feel the success. Yes. Perfect. Right. You're like, not my specialty. Excellent. Great.
Actually define the categories so that
Yes.
it's doable, so that they're not saying, what's in it?
Right, I'm like those, yeah, that sense of.
I mean, that's what I did. I said, mammals, okay, go back to.
Right.
Crocodile, bird. Wait, no.
No, yeah.
3, 3, 4, okay, fine.
But what a beautiful thing to know that that thinking is happening inside the circle and outside, right, in the perimeter. So that's what we want. If it's definitely, if we're going back to the science classroom, the social studies classroom that came up, is that everybody in the room is like, oh God, I don't know, the president's, could I do it, right? Everybody's in the think tank together. There's this idea of the yes and is that we all lean in of like, yeah, we're with you. There's that group think happening of could I make it, you know? And as soon as somebody pauses, somebody's like, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, I'm here to help you. And you can do all these beautiful things in terms of, great, do you need to phone a friend? So then a friend can join them and be like, hey, it's Abraham, right? That you can get the group going with how you build out the game. Maybe for younger learners, you might brainstorm the topics ahead of time. Like, great, we have everybody together. What do you want our categories to be? Animals, holiday, you know, whatever it is. So then we're prepared. Be like, okay, Lisa, you're ready? Right, mammals, okay. So everybody's seen them up and they're already in, you know, could be the word wall, whatever you're working on in terms of vocabulary. Yes?
I'd say with younger kids, everybody will want to turn. They won't be like the 8th graders. They'll all want to be in the middle. So I would be thinking of a way to put a bunch of, for sure, I would probably want 2 or 3 to start so we could give everybody a turn.
Yeah, great, 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 great.
And maybe like have the, if it's a tougher topic, before someone volunteers, real quick pair share one. So then whoever's gonna go into it has already had their memory jogged, and they've got 2 ideas.
Absolutely. Great for test prep in terms of like, let's review. Let's, then they're assigning each other like, oh, we're going to challenge you. We know this is going to be on the test, right? Great. You could even do it where it's not a category of 6 thing, but it's an answer to a question of like, you've got to answer the question within this time. So you're prepping those test skills.
You could go higher level and like have them, some answers would be double points. They would count for 2 rather than just for 1.
Great. Love it. And maybe a student is in that scoring position, so you can rotate who's the role in the game. I love it.
Really
Yeah.
slow processor. What do you do?
Then I think you have.
They can give the answer.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to phone a friend, but it is going to take them.
To get, yes, great. So I would, if I know, right, and I'm setting up my classroom for success, what I would do is that there would be singles going in and doubles. So as long as I've set up that structure, I can pair them without them sort of feeling like, oh, I'm the only one that got paired. But I've made it like, great, 2 are going to go in, 3 are going to go in. Now we're going to change, we can constantly shift the numbers so then I can help and control. That's that secret, I always like secret classroom management, right? It's where you want to be 3 steps ahead for their safety. I just hit that mic and I'm super sorry for whoever was on. I was like, boom, oh, sad microphone. I'm an over gesturer. But I love that idea of being 3 steps ahead to keep the environment incredibly safe for all of the learners in the room, which I think is another gift of teaching artistry and arts in the classroom, is that we know it covers all the learners in the room. And I can really pay attention to, oh, fantastic, great, this is what this human being needs right now. Excellent, which is different than this human being. Fabulous. And those 2 things are happening inside the same exercise, so I know we're going to be all good.
Yes, I have a question to you.
Yeah.
So you have the person like me who's so interested in what everybody else is doing that I completely lose track of whatever the hell is, excuse me, in my head. So I'm that person out and I'm going, or I go, whatever it is, the mouse, and then I go rhinoceros, or I don't, no, a lizard. I'll say a lizard or something, and everybody goes, no, and then I'm like, I feel like I've failed everybody. So that thing of like, how do you, if somebody's getting it wrong, I mean, sure you can try and set them up for it to be right, but it's sort of implicit that you need to do it right because you gave us a group, which was mammals. So if somebody does it wrong, then they're wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether you want that because this is more of a sort of, and it's a test-taking thing, I suppose that's great because it's like, okay, if you've got it wrong, never mind, we'll help each other, blah, blah, blah. But but if it's for team building or confidence building, I guess, I don't know, just sort of, I guess, context.
Yes, and that's exactly the answer, right? Is that if it's fact-based, then we've got to be worth our salt and be like, no, that's not great. So so you've got 4, right? That wasn't one of them. So we've got to keep moving forward. And then maybe there's an opportunity at the end of, great, unpack why. Why was that not a mammal? If we're test reviewing, let's know why. So then that helps us plug in to be like, great, so what are you going to replace for lizard in that moment?
So I guess what I'm getting from that is if it's something to do with doing something for a test, then we're obviously trying to help each other to learn information. But if it's a confidence building thing, you don't want to set the parameters too tight.
Right,
because then there's an allowance for people to just succeed whatever. It's more the activity of doing it than the knowledge of the information.
Yes. So then that, in terms of the product of the exercise, right? I know as a facilitator, I'm setting it up for fact-based, so that I've got to make sure that all the answers are right? Because there is a black and white right answer. Or if it's set up for team building, then the structure might be different in terms of maybe it's build a shape, right? You could merge Buildin Break with this, and it's that you build something, right? That there's a shape, like, great, everybody build a mammal. Happens within the time. So there's no like, what is your elephant? There's no wrong answer. Like, great, fantastic, it's an abstract elephant. So then there's a way that it could be team building. I can thread that all the way through if that's my objective. Right. So I love this idea, especially if we're looking at modification. What is my goal? We talk a lot in lesson planning about backwards design. So that I'm not necessarily looking at the separation of, like, hey, this is the theater, then this is the science. It's this is the theater and the science. Then I backwards design, I go, great, that's how it threads through to the standards, that's where I'm hitting all these things. Oh, I need to heighten that, I need to make sure that's incredibly clear, right? Often I'm collaborating with the classroom teacher, be like, great, so this is what we've laid out, where can we strengthen it? what do you need? Where are you, like, where's the role of the classroom teacher in this lesson plan? All those beautiful things. Does that make sense? So then the objective is very clear.
Great. All right.
Great.
So this is our next game is a sequencing game, and we're actually going to split the circle so that you get a feeling for what are known as formal and informal activities. So the activities we've played right now have been informal because we're in a circle. Everybody's safe. Our next game is going to be a formal game, and everybody will play it. But it will be formal because half of us are going to make a straight line looking at the other half of us on this side in the audience. Okay? So let's just split the circle right here. And so if you are upstage from me, stay where you are. And if you're downstage, you're in the audience. So you can stand or you can grab a chair wherever your body feels comfortable.
I made my own call.
I love that.
Is that an operation?
Yeah.
Great. So we have the actors on stage, and we have the audience looking at the actors. You're the actors.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're
Did
okay
you
to
really-
sit. You're
I don't know,
absolutely
I'm sitting
okay.
downstage,
Yeah.
so-
No, that's great. Great. And so that's a great moment of diagnostic. But you did what ultimately I want all my learners to do, and that is, this is my space. He's talking, I'm going to go down. Oh, wait a minute, he wants me up? That, to me, is when you know the culture of your classroom is alive because there's a shift of ongoing who's in charge and who's not, right? That's what is known as critical pedagogy. I know that you are looking at me like I have all the answers because I'm the guy in front of you. But in order for us to work, you have to be in charge just as much as I have to be in charge on that. So again, wonderful teaching opportunity, so thank you for that. So this game is called What's Next, okay? And in a moment, I'm gonna give these actors a simple chore, okay? And the actor here is going to show us the first step in that chore, all the way through the actors on stage to Michael, who has to finish the chore, okay? So actors, we can't complete the chore, okay? Michael only gets to finish the chore, whatever it is. Each of us are just adding one step to the chore, okay? So it's a sequence activity. You can't be wrong. The only way you can be wrong in the game is if by the time it gets to Allison, it's complete. We just know as a team, we failed the game. Short of that, right? Michael has to finish it. So if I said folding laundry and everybody, we get the shirt right here, you know, Michael will fold it. Does that make sense to everybody on stage? Okay. Audience, your job after I say freeze to the actor is to say as a chorus, what's next? So let's just practice that. So 1, 2, 3, freeze.
What's next?
So actors, that will be your cue to tell us what you're going to do. Then you're just going to demonstrate it through pantomime. I'll say freeze, and you just hold that position. So by the time we get to Michael, we're going to see a frozen picture of each step of the chore. So that's the hardest part, actors, because you may want to be one of the hiding kids, right? Where you'll do this, I'll say freeze, and then you'll go back to your spot. Just stay right there in the freeze.
Clarification.
Yeah.
Can you say verbally what we're doing?
Yes. We as a team will say, what's next? And you'll answer it and then show us. And then I'll say freeze. And just in case you're worried that you're going to be doing something for hours before I say freeze, I'm going to let you do it for a bit and then I'll say freeze. Okay? Just to practice that, everybody, can you do something simple like tying your shoe or adjusting a necklace or a tie until I say freeze and then just hold it? So go ahead and start that activity. And freeze. That's exactly right. So actors, this is exactly the tool that I'll need for you to come back to in your work. Nice work. Okay, so I'm going to go over here. All right. Actors, this is going to be filling a pet's dish with food. 1, 2, 3, everybody will say what's next. 1, 2, 3, what's next?
Going to the pantry to see if I have food.
And freeze. 1, 2, 3.
What's next?
I take the can of food out of the pantry.
Freeze.
What's next?
I go to the drawer to get the can opener.
Freeze.
What's next?
I marry the can opener with the can and open it.
Freeze.
What's next?
I have to get a spoon out of the drawer so that I can scoop the food out of the can. So my drawer's over here.
Freeze.
What's next?
I scoop the food into the dish, careful not to spill any.
Freeze.
What's next?
I take the food from the dish and put it down here at Muffy's level.
Good. Nice work, Ashley. Excellent. Great. So let's have you come to the safety of the audience and y'all come up onto the safety of the stage. Nice work. Great. So team, just as we're switching, just a couple things. You'll notice that the game has organized who starts. All right? So just know that in terms of your classroom culture, sometimes it's helpful for them to know how the game goes. So that if I'm somebody who doesn't necessarily have a lot of ideas, I know I'm safest on this end of the line. Right? Or I always say, this is the best place to be because if you go first, you're done. Right? Because Jason ultimately in the land of theater has the hardest job because he's got to navigate all this information to land it. But in this game, whether you're on this end or this end, you're going to be in the safest zones, right? So again, as an educator, if I know that Allison is struggling, I'll place her in the line. I'm not squelching her at all by saying, Allison, I'd like you to start this, right? Likewise, if I got a squirrel, Patrick, I'm going to ask you to wait. But I know, and that's the beauty of the discipline of theater. You really want to, but I need you to just wait on that. So, all of that to say, we'll get you a new one. The other thing that I love about this room is teaching obstacle, right? So just kind of know that your actors need your eyes, right? So if I'm facilitating, I need to stay here until I can go over here. Otherwise, your poor little shy birds, right? If I don't have teacher eyes, and that's the other thing, right? It does matter where in the room you are as a facilitator, because even though they think they may be doing it for other reasons, they're really doing it for you. And so if they don't have you to land on, they get a little squirrelier than they normally would. So just kind of be aware of that. Hey, let's make some toast. Okay? So audience, we'll give you a chance to warm up. 1, 2, 3.
What's next?
Good, and freeze.
Grab the bread down and start untwisting that little twisty tie.
And freeze.
I'm going to take the twisty tie off of bread and open the bag.
Freeze.
What's next?
I'm going to pick up slices from the middle package so they will.
Freeze.
What's next?
I'm going to look at them first to make sure it's ready.
Freeze.
What's next?
Freeze.
What's next?
I'm going to get the toaster out of the cabinet.
Freeze.
What's next?
I'm going to plug the toaster into the wall.
Freeze.
What's next?
I'm going to take the bread, put it in the toaster, and anxiously wait.
Good. Nice work, actors. Excellent. Excellent. Awesome. So, actors, I'm going to ask you to stay on stage as we debrief. This is just a model of a quick assessment. Okay? So, actors, share with me one thing you did or you saw somebody do really well in the activity.
I thought it was very clever that the person before me found moldy bread, and then I had to think a little quicker.
Excellent. Great. And right in theater, that would be an open opportunity to talk about conflict, dramatic conflict. That was really great, and you solved that. What else did you do well?
I thought it was great that Anne held her pose, because I forgot to hold my pose. Like after I was done, I started like watching her, and she reminded me that I needed to, just her actions reminded me I needed to be frozen.
Great. So the power of nonverbal reminding. Excellent. Anything else?
I really liked, what's your name?
Jason.
How Jason added another level by going down to his knees to anxiously wait.
Yeah, I'm with you on that completely. I love that Lisa and Jason were like, no, stage is over here now. Right? I love diva moments, especially when everybody's had their diva moment in the line, and now we're going to break the line. Yeah, so really great read. Actors, before I move from you, is there anything that you want to share before I move to the audience?
Yeah, I loved how we set each other up and both, I mean, that I guess is the nature of activity, but how like activity leads to us setting, like thinking of other people ahead of us and what's going to happen to them if we go too quick or something.
Yes.
And I also loved how, like, I was thinking that then I'm like, they're not even going to get butter on their toast. And then Jason was like totally cool with it. He's like, I want to wait for the toast. And that was like an exciting enough ending where it was totally acceptable.
Yeah.
To end. No one was like really like passionate about getting all the way to the end of the process of making toast.
And you also had to negotiate that my end of toast making may not be what your end of toast making is. And particularly if I'm the fourth person, I have to give up my version of toast making because that's as far as I got in the process on that. And I love, right, as a facilitator, this is building the exact kind of classroom culture I want. We celebrate that it went different than I thought. That's not wrong, that's gold. So really lovely. Anything else, actors?
I like the twist time because it was very simple, but something that was just as compelling an action as any of the bigger actions, so that it really gave a good notion of proportion action.
Yeah, and it sets us in a certain time frame in terms of this isn't 1800s, right? This is a contemporary kitchen where bread comes in plastic. But if I said bake toast like a pioneer would, right? There may be some modifications there. Awesome.
What happens if it doesn't come to a logical end? You just say, well, that's life. Sometimes it doesn't always work, or it's not even close, or
Yeah.
the last couple of people are frustrated, like, oh my gosh, now what? I've got more steps to do and I'm not going to finish this.
Yeah, and you can always step in as a facilitator and say, you know, Katie, I'm feeling that it finished here. Are you feeling that, or is there something you could add on to the process? So that I can take the bullet for the team, particularly, Michael, you were really great to kind of zero in, ooh, my kids are getting frustrated, right? I'll take the bullet of the frustration and I'll step in because Katie will know better than anybody if she wants to go forward or not. And I'll always give her, you know, Katie, if we're finished, you'll get to start. Or are you ready to add on to it on that? It's really great because that is informal inquiry. What's the learner struggling with? Not based on what Patrick thinks Katie's struggling with. Sorry, Katie, to put you on the hot seat, but you're center stage, baby. Right? So, right, get in there and ask Katie. She'll let you know. Oh no, I've got the twist tie already. I got the moldy bread already, which was really great. Audience, from your vantage point, what did you notice in the work that worked? What was compelling to watch?
I also liked that because we had our teaching obstacles, that they kind of wrapped around and brought the new level because it was playing to the audience and it made it fit for our space.
Great, great, great. Excellent. So I love the connect, all those light bulbs that are going off in terms of how you would use it and modify it. This game, very similar to What's Next. We joke that there's really only 5 games. So even in the structures that we're giving you today, you can sort of see how, oh, Buildin Break, oh, that Tableau connection, right? They're all connected. And sometimes you can merge them together, and we love to twist things around. So, my gosh, nobody owns them. Take them, move them around the world. So, this game is called Stack Action. So to Patrick's point about the free write and also using kinesthetic exercises to strengthen writing. So you might be seeing in your students' writing the same consistent things that you're like, gosh, every single time. Maybe they're not really diving into imagery. They're not really diving into detail. Then you do an exercise like what's next, and somebody pulls out a beautiful moment like that twist tie, that moment of specificity. So then you can start to pull on those threads of like, wow, what'd you notice? And that's the stuff they're going to notice. Then, whoa, wait a minute. Can we put that back into our written work? So threading that back to the written work is always a beautiful thing, and stack action is another way to do that. So what happens is this, is that I start a story, and I am first person inside the story. I was riding a wave on the coast of LA. My neighbor does exactly what I have done. So, I was riding a wave on the coast of LA. I was riding a wave on the coast of LA. Excellent, fantastic. Instantly I applaud this bravery, like fully mirrors fantastic, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Then, what's your name again? Hallie, fantastic. Hallie adds on. So she begins to build the story, one sentence, one action at a time. So that's why it's called stack action. It's Michael's job over here, right? It's pretty serious, because of all those actions that are coming his way. Cool? Fabulous. I was riding a wave on the coast of LA. I was riding a wave on the coast of LA. Swerving in and out, shredding the knob. Yes. I was riding a wave on the coast of LA, shredding in and out, riding the knob. When all of a sudden, I realized I wasn't wearing my swimsuit. I was riding a wave on the coast of LA, shredding the gnar, and when all of a sudden I noticed there was a whale amongst. You noticed what?
Oh, I wasn't wearing a swimsuit, and there was a whale amongst us.
Excellent.
I was riding waves on the coast of LA, and I was shredding the nars. And I noticed I wasn't wearing a swimsuit, and there was a big whale over there, so I said, "Turn around, whale, don't look at me."
Excellent. Good. So now what I'm going to do, right, as a facilitator is I'm going to be comfortable that the story has finished here. So I'll start a new story, right? Mainly because what I do know about circle games, and Allison knew this about circle games too, is that there just comes a point where now I'm going to explode as opposed to I'm going to create. And we got that sense of, oh, I'm exploding, but there's a lot of creativity. For this child, me, there's no way. I'd be like, oh. And I would know that as a facilitator, so I would say, hey everybody, let's applaud the work of these actors. And here comes our new story. I woke up with a headache.
I woke up with a headache. What did I eat?
I woke up with a headache. What did I eat? I gotta go to the bathroom.
I woke up with a headache. What did I eat? I have to go to the bathroom, but I tripped on a toy. I'm blank.
Okay.
I woke up with a headache. What did I eat? I go to the bathroom and I tripped over a toy, and then I look at my watch. Oh, I'm running late for my school. Great, and pause. Excellent. So a couple things in this game.
It's a challenging game. Beautiful things in terms of the teaching of it is this moment right here. So what it requires of the bravery to fully listen to the idea that's coming your way so that you can be ready to build. This idea of the yes and, right, comes from the listening of the idea from the other actor. So often though, because it's scary, right, I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to say? What am I going to do? What am I going to say? I'm planning. I'm in my own world planning instead of fully being present and fully listening to the idea coming my way. So it's a beautiful skill to practice. So this is not a game that you do 1 or even 2 times. It's something where we already in the learning of this, right? What shifted in the second round? Why? Why was it easier?
That's a great observation.
Well, I think the start of your story was easier.
Mm.
And
Great.
So then I think it was shorter.
Yes. So we adjusted in terms of the length of the phrase. Yes. And the phrase had rhythm as it moved through, is that it did this, then it did this, then it did this, then it did this. Ours were on a longer phrase. Both beautiful, right? But it was like, okay, great, this is what we're gonna do, see how far we get. And then there's gorgeous things that you can build in terms of, if they look, there's communication happening between the team. The team can always be like, I was wearing, I'm with you, and we're riding the wave. And that word nar, let's talk about it, because I don't know what that is. Great, does that make sense? So the phone a friend is happening where they can join. So you can always build in, it's again that idea of thinking ahead, of building where the safety nets are, right? So as Patrick said before, like, great, we're gonna stop here, story restarts. You can always split a circle, which I love in terms of half of us do what's next, half of us do stack action, half of us are then gonna do a game, what are you doing, like whatever, that you can move in thirds. Because if you have a group of 30, right, getting something all the way around, you might not make it, so then you can keep moving things. So for this next segment of exercises, we're gonna bust the circle. So in how we designed it is we looked at exercises that lived somewhat in the circle. Now we're looking at exercises that move throughout the space. And then we'll look into some formal exercises, as Patrick mentioned earlier, in terms of seeing where there's actors up and audience. So that's kind of how we're moving through our work. This exercise is called Speedfriending. I'm gonna grab my piece of paper, because I'm an older lady now, and I have to remember things. Great, beautiful. You're going to walk through the space. I'm gonna put a boundary on our space that we're gonna stay inside the rectangle that is the snack table to this pillar, and we're gonna kind of move within that rectangle. Does that make sense? So a pillar to snack table to wall to pillar. Great, and you're moving through the space, so here you go, you're traveling through the space, and you're heading for those pockets of what's called negative space, meaning the space that has no one in it. You're headed to the negative space. So you can watch as people move that the negative space starts to appear. Great. And it's a tiny little space. I love it. Excellent. And making eye contact as you move. Opening up. Hi. Oh, hi. Friends in the space together. Beautiful. Great. And you're going to find a partner. Find a partner. Beautiful, 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 excellent, beautiful. This is your shake hands partner. Shake hands with this partner. Remember this partner and walk it out. Walk it out, walk it out. Walk it out, walk it out, walk it out. Fabulous. I'm going to expand our space to the doors just to give us a little bit more space. Fabulous, excellent. Walk it out, walk it out. Find a brand new partner. Brand new partner. This is your high five partner. High five with this partner. Fantastic. Remember them as your high five partner and walk it out. I 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 walk it in slow motion. In slower motion. In slower motion. Fantastic. A brand new partner. Brand new, another partner. Touch toes with this partner. Touch toes with this partner. Fantastic. Remember this partner as your toe touch partner. Excellent. Do you have a partner? Fabulous. Great. Beautiful. Excellent. And walk it out. Walk it out. Walk it out. In tiny, tiny, tiny steps. Tiny, tiny, tiny steps. The tiniest steps. Tiny. Even tinier. The tiniest steps. And walk it out. And find a brand new partner. Brand new partner. Fabulous. This is your hip bump partner. You're going to bump hips with this partner. Fantastic. Excellent. Say hello to them. Make sure you know them. Remember your hip bump partner. Yes. And walk it out. Find your shake hands partner. Excellent. And free. dance partner, share your favorite word. That's pretty good. That's good. Guacamole. And walk it out. Walk it out. Leave this partner. Leave this partner. Fabulous. Excellent. And find your hip bump partner. Fabulous. Bump. Fabulous. And with this partner, freeze. Excellent. Look your partner in the eye and chat with them about how does your work as an artist or your appreciation of art empower your teaching?
Well, it's a process of photosynthesis that creates energy that emits light and therefore provides heat that is then used to move the turbines and create steam. So steam, heat, light, all that good stuff.
So that's how your art empowers your teaching?
Yes.
Great, tell me more about that.
I don't need electrical outlets. I don't need batteries. I just use the sun and the heat and the steam and the light and
you're totally good. That's how it's powered.
Yeah, and the little toys just keep doing what they need to do.
All fits together. Like career-wise for me, acting, directing, theater, teaching all lives in one same shared space. So they all influence each other. They're roommates. Yeah. So very. Yes, there's others, often. The one is like, wait a minute, I get a lot of attention. Yeah, it is like a common, all living together. But at fuel, they each fuel the other.
Like
Exactly, and the little toys.
Yeah.
Yes, see, it's all connected to us. I love it. I'm going to move the people. And walk it out. Walk it out. Bid your partner adieu. And finding your toe touch partner. Fabulous. And great. Excellent. With his partner, share with them your favorite junk food. Go. Nice. Excellent. Yes. Lock them up.
Chocolate chip. Flavors and colors.
Right. That's so healthy if you're choosing.
Well, in a way, yes, it's better. You got an excuse.
That's right. You're like, these are healthy. Yeah, it's fine. It's perfect. And walk it out. Fabulous. And high five partner. Find your high five partner. Fabulous. Excellent. And freeze. Great. With this partner, discuss your favorite nonverbal classroom management tool. A little more attention. So just moving my relationship to the students in the room. To go stand by a student that needs a little focusing. Yeah. Yes. So yeah, like if there's a student having a side conversation or something, I just keep going in the lesson and just stand by them. Maybe a gentle putting my hand on their shoulder. Never stopping what I'm doing, but just letting them know I'm near them. Excellent. And walk it out. Walk it out. Walk it out. And meet us in a circle, please. Fabulous. So that exercise is called Speedfriending. So quick shifting of partners, and you can add, there could be a fifth partner, there could be a sixth partner, and then there's an activity or a discussion that happens within each pair. So in terms of our continuing our discussion around modification, what would you use it for? Great, great. Excellent.
I did something similar the other day. The kids came in and they were really, really talky. And so I had them get up, walk around, and found somebody. And I said, all right, tall person, tell the other person about your day so far. And then I had them swap. And so then they had a chance to talk and get their jollies out. And I had them find one other person. So they did it twice so that it was like controlled. You guys need a moment to talk about whatever's going on with you. And then you can focus on it. And they did.
Great, great.
We actually use this too, and we let them say like mingle while they're walking, and like let them any opportunity for them to use their voices in a controlled way is like something that we love. So they walk around and they say mingle, 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 mingle. It's so cute. So the kids love it, and they like get really silly. So it's just a good way to like get them talking to each other, and then we can have them talk about anything. We do turn and talks like constantly, so it's just like a glorified turn and talk essentially. So love it. It's a great tool.
Great. And in terms of that, there's two things to modify, right? The pairing and the travel. So we did in terms of the speed and the negative space, but then the slowing down. If you have a really energized group, getting them to go in super slow motion actually takes more energy than going quickly. Be like slower, energy, no, it's harder and slow, right? That might be a way that if you are trying to like, woo, after lunch, after school, let's figure out, then they like bust with it, great, no, Grand Central Station at rush hour. No, now you're back to slow. To be the voice in the room of controlling that. One thing with a big group is that what was my cue to bring you back? Freeze, great. That I might establish that early, if like you're gonna listen for my voice. The length of that freeze gives it time so they don't miss it, right? Nobody was in trouble, for you just needed that time. Right? It's not me raising my voice, it's a different sound in the room. So there might be a gentle bell, a gentle drum, maybe one clap, then whoever's nearest me does another clap, however you want to bring them back, but that might be a cue inside a larger group that you establish at the beginning. It's just what is that freeze that's going to bring us back from the work so they can fully commit to the work. Because what you don't want in terms of classroom management is anyone who's on task inside the work, but it's loud, right? Our work can sometimes be loud. It can be very boisterous. It can be incredibly creative within that space. And I never want to call someone out where they're in trouble for being on the work and inside the work. That's not fair, right? I'm like, wow, great, I was bringing everybody back. Well, there's no way I could have heard you within that. That's on me. So figuring out what's the information that the students need ahead of time to be like, great, safe space, fantastic when you hear this. Or if I need to make a physical adjustment so they see me, I'm 6'1", so if I go down, they're like, where'd you go? Like, that just happened, right? Or if I stand, like, whatever happens, whatever that shift is, that they're looking for me in the space. Great, fantastic. Patrick?
Excellent. So these are all what are known as sociometric activities, but what I wanted to bring our attention to, just so that you can kind of see why we did what we did at the beginning of our time together. So as Allison was putting you through your paces as a learning community, right, she was using consistency, which we worked through in our first activities with the walk it out. You always knew walk it out was going to come as a learner. She also did what was known as the preset or establish, and this is this idea of limiting to free, right? I have 4 partners in the game that I know that's all I have to remember. so that I know I don't have to worry about it, like what's going to come next. So we did that preset establish. Then in facilitation, Allison used a variety of both vocal and physical cues, right? From the sound to asking you to slow down to move. And then very specific prompts, right? And that's why one thing that we really try to impress on our teaching artists at the DCPA is use your script. Use your script. You predetermined what those questions are. Don't do this during the teaching moment. Okay, with this partner, I want you to, right? Use a script. Use a script. And so Allison modeled that so that you could be in the work much better. She built on the culture that you were all successful with. Turn taking, listening, conversing, and responding to cues. As the facilitator, while this was going on, I'm always thinking of questions I want to ask my actors, right? So this, as your facilitator, I was thinking, hey, when I ask this next question, do you need more time? Do you want me to say you have 30 seconds to answer this question or a minute to answer your question? Or is everybody comfortable with it'll take as long as it takes? And finally, hey, I'm wondering, is it okay to work without what's known as external narration? Studies are coming out that children, because they live in a digital world, once we take the digital world from them, they have to start articulating everything they're doing. I'm crossing over here, there's Reagan, and then I'm seeing outside. And so it used to be that children could actually do this. Walk around the room. Now they do what's known as external narration. I see that you have a color of that. I have a couch that color. And that tattoo, I got to ask you about that. And I love that. What are those things called? Right? Because children are being conditioned to experience the world that comes at them like this, once we take that away from them, they start doing it on themselves. And they talk. And so I'm very intrigued with all the studies that are coming out with how the arts calm that down. That I can have a process that doesn't need narration. So I'm big on, let's work without external narration. Just try it. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes they're just so in love with each other that's how they express their love and camaraderie, and you don't want to get into it. You want to dun, 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 hey, dun, 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 right? To build on that. So all of that to say, I stepped out of the activity just to kind of give you that bird's eye view of, as a facilitator, here are the things you're building on, here are the things you're using, and then finally, what are your inquiry moments on it? So our next sociometric activity is called Four Corners. I'm sure you've played this in some fabulous way or another. What's going to happen is I'm going to give you a prompt, and I'm going to be here in the middle of the room. And I will direct where your answers are. You must choose one answer, even if you like all the answers, or even if you hate all the answers. So there's no straddling. So I might put an answer here, and I might put an answer here, and you like both those answers, and you want to straddle. Don't straddle. Just make a choice. You don't have to live with it forever. Okay? So there will be a corner here, there'll be a corner over here, and a corner over here, and a corner over here on that. Okay? And just in case you were like me, Patrick, did you mean a corner over here? Yes. So there's a corner here and a corner here. All right, so here's your first one, okay? Imaginative, creative, inventive, innovative. So innovative, inventive, creative, imaginative. Please pick your corner. However you want to answer it, yeah. Innovative and inventive. Good, interesting. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds and I'll time you. Just debrief with each other, make sure everybody in this group knows why you made the choice you made. Okay? So make sure everybody's voice gets heard in 30 seconds. Go. Great, excellent. All right, here come your new corners. Okay? A student who is engaged. A student who is engaged is like ice water, hot black coffee, a smoothie, or root beer float. A student who is engaged is like ice water, hot black coffee, a smoothie, or a root beer float. Give you 30 seconds. Share your reason for choosing where you are and why. Great, last one, my friends. For me, for you, classroom management is like a laundry basket, a circus tent, a kayak, or a tornado. For me, classroom management is like a laundry basket, a circus tent, a kayak, a tornado. Great. How about 30 seconds to share your reason for choosing where you are and why?
Not like, I'm in the kayak.
Great, everybody, and let's head back to the circle.
Has to live together. Yeah. Yeah.
So, speedfriending and four corners, just a couple sociometric activities on that. Sociometric is using the space and assigning specific information or answers to a specific spot in the space. It's really important at some point, particularly if you're in an environment where the children are used to drill and kill, where they just are focused, to give them a sociometric opportunity to enact or to embody the information. And it's the easiest, in our world, it's the easiest form of theater, right? Because unlike all of our other activities where we had to kind of embody the information, I just have to move to the answer. But that's theater, right? Because I have to make a choice, and I have to then be able to articulate why I made my choice on that. So, sociometrics.
And one thing that we talk about often, and it's that idea of, I recently saw a mug on a teacher meme that made me laugh, which is keep calm and act like it's in the lesson plan. But I think that there's like, yes, that's exactly where we were going to go. But there's also the keep calm and abandon the lesson plan. Because so much of our work, especially as we look at theater and integration and how it's, wherever we are, if it's arts-based learning, core curriculum learning, is it's about facilitated discussion. So if my objective is to ignite critical thinking and discourse inside the classroom, as soon as that happens, I want to be able to be with them in that conversation, give them the tools, move them through that conversation, because that's what we're getting towards, is that idea of, yes, this is tools to have a conversation wherever they are inside the learning. Does that make sense? And it might be test prep, right, where they're like, no, but I think it's this, and what about, and you're looking for this, like they're talking to each other. I want to make sure that I'm helping facilitate that. So these exercises and structures can get them to that, and it's a safe environment for everyone's voice to be heard in the room. If it's to partners, if it's to the groups that are in corners. Some of the other sociometric exercises that you might be familiar with is a spectrum, right, where I can put an idea on one side, an idea on the other side, and you stand within that gradation on the spectrum of where you are between those two things. So it's really taking that measurement of like, okay, great, this is where we are. So it's fun to get those conversations going.
We have a conversation with Explorer cards.
Oh my gosh, I'm so thrilled. Fabulous. So we are going to take the next minute. You might have noticed the images that are laid out on the table. Is that I want you to just, for the next minute, as if you're in a gallery, just taking in the images that are on the table, just rotating around. Now for the next phase of this exercise, you are going to choose an image to answer a question. So I'm going to ask that everybody, once I give the framing question, that you still hang out for a minute before you choose. So you're going to live with the images for a whole minute before you choose. The framing question is, what is artistry? And if you have one that you're really drawn to and someone else has it, you can join that. Great. Excellent. Fabulous. And I'm going to now move us into the classroom area so you can take a seat with your image. Fabulous. So we've all answered the question, what is artistry with the image? Just because of time, we won't be able to hear from everyone. But I'd love if there's a couple volunteers that would like to share, first off, describing their picture to everyone, and then why they chose this image to answer the question, what is artistry? Great.
I have a diver who is next to a colossal manatee. I'm assuming you're trying to get a picture. And I chose this to be artistry because sometimes you have to take risks to get a good picture or to get a good result.
Great. Excellent. Excellent. Yes, yes.
I chose the chicken on the egg because it gives meaning, literal meaning to something that is an abstract.
Great, great, excellent. Yes.
I almost chose grandpa and grandson, but I ended up with this because it was complex, which artistry is to me, yet simple and all engaged in one thing.
Great. So give us some detail about what is the image.
There is obviously a sculptor teacher. It's some kind of sculpting studio. There is a subject. He is the artist. There is basic raw material that's being pushed forward. There are examples of completed things, so we're in all sections of the dynamic.
Great, great, excellent. So, back to our question about modification, where this exercise could be used. How was it inside the exercise? Yes.
This is a perfect example of how to do characterization for a person in a short story or novel or poem. Which image do you think best represents this character? Pull evidence from the text to support why you chose that picture. You could do it with abstract art too. It doesn't even have to be portraits. It could be any type of visual image.
Mm-hmm. So definitely in terms of the modification for this exercise, right? This is one deck. These are actually, it's an organization called Visual Explorer. So we ordered the decks and they come like playing cards. And then we took digital photos of them to blow them up to make them a little bit bigger because we've noticed the size is important in terms of being able to see into the image, especially for younger learners. And the description, so those steps are very important, right? If I would have just said answer the question right away, everybody would have grabbed and not really taken in all of the options that were there in terms of the gallery. That first moment of the gallery is very important. Then even once everyone knows the question, so it's facilitated discussion, right? Is that we change that framing question. We've used it in terms of what is true love for you in unpacking Romeo and Juliet. So really for teenagers to start articulating, wow, if I'm in Romeo's shoes, if I'm in Juliet's shoes, and this is a way to do that. And the describing of what they see, that directly connects to a standard in terms of reading comprehension. Sometimes we think that reading comprehension is just on the page. No, it is this image. What are you seeing? What is the narrative inside the story? What is that to you? That moment is super important before articulating why the image answers the question. Then recently, and this is a modification for us that just came up in developing a lesson plan for Frankenstein. So what we do is we do pre-show lessons for all students who are coming to student matinees at the Denver Center, is that what is human, what is a creature, and that they had to answer those two questions using the same image and starting to grapple with that's the question that the play is posing. So that sort of opposition within that is something. What is parental love versus true love? You can answer that with the same image, or going back to the images and choosing a new image depending on what your framing question is. Excellent. Do we want to move
I think we're at time.
Yeah,
I think
yes.
Yeah. So here is the cardinal rule of theater. Always leave them wanting more. You'll notice on the flip side that we had, should time provide us, 3 more activities. All you need to know in those activities is that they are built on the idea of moving from working as a whole group to moving into working as very small groups to give back information or retell information. So those are those activities. If they're an interest to you by the pitch that's there, Our email is down. I'll be happy to send you a more formal explanation of how to do any of those activities. But we really, Allison and I, just value any time we do a workshop where the content is being driven by the participant. So again, going back to Allison's idea of sometimes you just have to let go of what you planned because the interest is where it is. That's all this was. So thank you so much, and
Yes,
360, thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
having
thank
us.
you, thank you. And we hope to see you soon in
Yeah.
classrooms all over the state.